the owner of photosynthesis. Uh,
Hi, Mayank.
Hi, hi, Sonali.
the
Hi.
idea of these sessions is to create a connect between artists and the audience. And while we are at it, we thought in these tough times we would also give a platform to startups to reach out to people. So, Mayank, while we are waiting for more people to log in, if you could introduce yourself and what your company does, it would be great.
Surely. First of all, Sushil, thank you for allowing me for being a part of this seminar or webinar. And to tell you all about my company, we are basically a branding and advertising company. We are basically into a research branding, which is a bit of a different league than regular branding thing. So we basically deal in terms of getting the whole set of things done and accomplishing the objectives of a client. So for example, if somebody says we need a increment in sales of 10%, then we basically set out to do a market research, perception, behavior, color. And based on that, we developed a full branding plan that takes care of digital marketing, research, design, and all those things. And then we implement those plans so that at the year end or at the end of a certain timeline, the client is able to see how does marketing and branding and digital marketing has helped them to attain their objectives. So there's various aspects of this marketing. It can be an employee branding, employer branding, it can be increment of sales, or it can be an influencer marketing. So it depends. And based on that, we do research and we accomplish the goals set by the client. That's how we work on it.
Superb, superb, Mayank. Thank you. So, in case anybody wants to get in touch with Mayank, if you could write down your contact details in the chat box, that would be great.
Surely, surely, Sushi. Just give me a minute.
Awesome. So while we're waiting for Mayank to chat and write down his details, hello
Right.
to everybody who I know and who I don't as well. I do see a lot of, I see some familiar faces and names, just like I see Mark. Mark is an amazing photographer from America, so I see him there. And a lot of people that you know, Sushilji. So yes,
Yes.
hello everybody, and thank you for attending this. And I think Mayank's already written
Yes.
something down, which is so
Yes. So
nice.
all my the contact details for Mayank are in the chat box. Anybody who wants to get in touch with him, feel free to use those contact details. It is 6:05 and we are good to start the session. I would like to thank you, Sonali, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Sonali is a documentary filmmaker and also a photographer. Uh, when I, with my team, were thinking about bringing different speakers on board, you were one of the first names that came to my mind, mainly because I'm a big fan of your photographs myself.
Thank
Mainly because street photography, a lot of people do, but uh, people easily relate to your pictures because, and that tells you about the thought process that goes into creating an image.
you.
Because
Yes,
let's say a lot of people click images, but very few create images, and that takes a lot more understanding of the subject, being sensitive towards the subject, and being involved with what you're photographing, right? And that's why
definitely.
you're definitely like we're sure that one of the speakers has to be you on one of these sessions. And I was glad that you connected and you were ready to do the session. So I would suggest to our audience that we would be playing a small video for you now. After that, Sonali will be speaking about her photography journey and experience, and then we
Let me
will.
do the other way around. Let me
Okay,
start talking about why and how and what portraits
super
are, and then show them
works.
a little snippet of
Yes,
my photos and why I
perfect.
take them, what I connect with, and then go back on to that. So
Yes,
yes, portrait
and then we
photography,
can open the session to Q&A.
definitely to Q&A.
Perfect,
So
perfect. So nice, so all yours, the session.
thank you. So first of all, hi guys, I'm Sonali Devnani, a photographer by chance, by hobby, as they call it. Didn't know where I was going, and I've ended up into this genre of portrait photography. And I always say portrait photography is very important because each one of us has been a subject in front of the camera once in your lifetime. It could be your marriage, it could be anything that you've been, but you have been a subject. And if you are a photographer, even more so, you relate to your subject. So portraits has been something. I can go to the most gorgeous landscapes, but I can never shoot them because I feel like I want to know more about the place. And knowing more about the place is not knowing all the touristy destinations, but it's actually knowing the people. Because once you know the people, you know the place. That's how it is. So portrait photography entered like into my life like that. It creeped in, and slowly it was a disease that I couldn't do anything but just click people. Uh, Everyone shoots people, and everyone says that what makes a portrait so different from what the others shoot. And I only say one thing is that if there's no connect between the photographer and the subject, the photo is going to be bland. Because as human beings, we kind of build a wall between ourselves when we are even interacting with strangers. And the real emotion comes when you start to get to know each other. And that's what you need to do. The challenge in portrait photography is making a stranger yours in minutes, to get the emotions, to get their life story, and to translate that into a visual image. We are very responsible because we are storytellers, So if someone is seeing a photo of a person, why is it important and why would I see it? And that's what I would ask myself. Now, why am I seeing this image? Because I want to know the story behind it. And if the image itself is telling you the story, you have aced portrait photography. If you have to write a caption, even more amazing, because you want to give the details of it, but just a glance of it, and if the emotion is converted in that image, you are in a full win situation. That's how and why I love portrait photography, because I love talking to strangers, knowing their stories and stuff like that. It's not an easy task, because I always tell people that you could have the longest of lenses, stand on one corner and shoot whatever you see, whatever person you see. It may be a very nice looking woman, or a wrinkly old man and everything, but you are responsible for that image and why you are showing. So a lot of people say, "Oh, you convey and you portray poor India and old India and hungry India," and this is my own family that is actually saying things like that. But to me, I feel like we can make a change, even with an image, or it could be helping someone. It could be anything. We can still make a change. And I've done that in the past with a lot of my subjects. So my interaction with my subjects is the only reason why I'm a portrait photographer. Um, there's a lot of ethics that goes behind portrait photography, because here you are very responsible for the person you're capturing, so you cannot show them in a not a right manner. So think about it. If you were the subject and some wedding photographer, some fashion photographer is capturing you and has captured you in the most awkward of a moment, you would hate that photographer. So you are responsible not only for showing the real life of that person, but also glamorizing that person. I mean, if it's fashion, then glamorizing. If it's street, not making it awkward for the subject. And that's one thing I always do, is after I've shot the portrait, always go back to the subject and show them their portrait and why you liked it. So I do a lot of interaction with portrait photography. People ask me why your picture is different and ours don't come out. It's only because of the simple reason is that we tend to hesitate before we interact with our subjects, and that's important, because that is what is going to make a portrait. So I can show a slideshow, and it's about 6 minutes. It's got a collection of my photos and why I took them, so you get to know the story behind it. I don't know if everyone has seen my Instagram profile and know what I do, but these are some of my favorite photos that I've taken, all happy and sad. And I shall share the screen. I am a bit technically backwards, so you will have to give me some time for that. But here you go. I hope everyone can see it. So she'll just give me a yes if you can. The children of Cambodia. I made this image in CM Reap. I had done enough of the touristy stuff. Honestly, how many temples can you see in a day? And that's why I ventured to the local villages to understand their traditions, their culture. I took a lot of sweets and food items for the kids in the village, and while I was distributing them in the green fields, I heard someone crying. I ran towards the cries. I see two kids peeping out of a window in a haystack hut. They were alone. They couldn't come out, and they were crying for the sweets and candies. I captured this image. Those tears were like pearls gliding across those cheeks. I then handed out the sweets to them, and I wished to capture the next moment, which was them smiling.
but they were too shy and they ran away. It's a very powerful image for me, and it made me feel like as adults, we always hide the pain. Do we even cry like these kids did? Pushkar Camel Fair, an annual event for me. But every single time I go there, there is something different that I'm able to capture. I believe don't capture the person, capture their soul. And the way to reach the soul is through their eyes. The eyes narrate their story. A slightly old woman here in this image, smoking the pipe or the chillam, as we call it in India, but her intense face and those wrinkles, they rightly describe the struggles she has been through. The Thorned Beauty, a remote village in Chhattisgarh. The simplicity of people wowed me. I, as the creator, hold the power to depict the reality. And we often use what's around for the viewer to sense the emotion. Thorned plants with hard hitting shadows on her face. It immediately rendered the emotion for me. I wanted my audience to look deep inside the picture. It didn't have to be just about the light, the shadows, and the colors. It meant a lot more. Pushkar once again. The word need. It's a complex word. We keep talking about we need this and we need that. It could be a pair of shoes, clothes. Why do we say we need it? We actually just want it. The real meaning of need is when you see hungry kids crying. And it's a common sight in places like Pushkar. A packet of biscuits can lighten up these kids' eyes. It's pure joy to see it, but it's heartbreaking on the other side to capture these tears. Versatile culture country. We are so lucky to be Indian. Multifaceted culture we have for sure. This image is from what we call a Chhat Puja and is usually celebrated up in the north in states like UP and Bihar mostly. Those colors, the vermilion in this image, it defined what an Indian woman was. The hand expressed what the heart already knows. Portraits isn't only about capturing the face. The hands can tell you a lot about what the person and his life has been. The rough texture here depicted his struggle. Crumbs of food, money. I felt like I knew everything about him without even asking what he had experienced. The toothless smile. The chai stalls in India are the most fun places to hang out for photographers like us. You can spend hours watching and meeting new people who come in for a break and a quick cup of tea. This gentleman was doing the same. I think he was traveling, carrying a large bag. I asked him about his whereabouts, and he was very happy to talk. I asked him to smile for my camera, and he said no, he had no teeth left. He was 90 years old. And I said, laugh, you will look even better in the camera. It was a touching moment when you interact with the person and they respond so positively to you. Somehow, he was no longer a stranger. You felt the connection right there. Rightly described the struggles she has been through.
All right. So that was that. I
Beautiful.
hope everyone.
Yeah, I love them.
These are the kind of photos I take. This is the kind of interaction I do. Sadly, what has happened in photography in the current moment is because making content has become so important that people do not look left, right, or center before taking a photo of a person and depicting them in the wrong sense, according to me. And it might be okay for them, but I just feel like it's wrong. So, the Afghan girl image from, the master of portraits, Steve McCurry, it did have a lot of slack as well now towards in the recent past of what he's done for the person, because that image was world famous. So the photo of Kevin Carter with the vulture and the child who is a famine struck child in Sudan who's crawling to a food station, the vulture is just inches away eyeing, and the photographer takes the image. I mean, and what is he doing or what is she doing ethically about that moment? Because that moment is the moment. I mean, the child could be eaten right in front of your eyes. So what is more important? Is it taking your photo or is it actually being a human being first? A lot of people have forgotten all of that. I remember images that are very famous from Jodhpur. Again, Steve McCurry, this little kid running in the blue city of Jodhpur, and there's these handprints on the blue walls, beautiful red handprints of Holi on the blue wall, and the child is running in the perfect position of that convergence of that blue streets and the lanes, and the child is running, and the perfect moment is captured. I have seen so many photographers try to recreate that moment, making the child run 50 times up and down to get that perfect moment. But what do we do for our subject? I mean, that poor child is still running. So I feel there's a give back that as a photographer we owe to the society and the community who's taking the time to let us take these photos. But it's not like that. It's actually now take your photo, click, and leave. The Pushkar Camel Fair is a perfect example. These gypsy girls are running behind photographers. They act as models, running behind photographers. 10 rupees, 10 rupees is all they charge. You don't even have to give them 10 rupees. You could have been giving them food or anything. So as a portrait photographer, I feel like we're responsible for our subjects. This is the more emotional and the ethical part of portrait photography. But a lot of beginners ask me what is important to become a portrait photographer, and I really think that the quote that Ansel Adams, a very famous photographer, quoted, that if the photographer is interested in people in front of the lens, it's already enough. And if or he or she is compassionate, then the instrument is not the camera, it is the photographer. And that is such a true statement when it goes to clicking people. And once that connect is made, and once you're compassionate enough, your photos are going to translate that emotion that you felt or how you felt into your image. And that's what makes your image stand out from other people. um, Technical aspects of photography, I'm a very simple, like I said. First of all, anyone who sees this background should know that the highlights are completely blown out over here. This is not me, this is Zoom. But yes, the technical components of portrait photography, I shoot fairly simple because I shoot candid moments that are passing by, or I interact with the people. I'm talking to the people so much that I might miss a moment in a minute or two. So I shoot on an aperture mode, and my exposure is something that I very largely go for in creating an image, because I feel like I can make the mood of the photo according to how I am feeling or what the story is about. Of course, the edit part comes after, but I feel like if you've made a perfect image with all the technical aspects in mind, and I feel light is everything in a photograph. So I think in portrait photography as well, exposure compensation and exposure is something that I handle a lot when it comes up to technically taking a photo. Other than that, aperture, I know a lot of people have this whole blockage of why they should just have this depth of field, very blurred backgrounds and stuff like that. And I don't know why they have it, because it's such a calculative thing. The focal distance to your subject and your aperture actually matters. So you don't have to be at 2.8 and 3.2. The sharper the image you want, the lower the aperture needs to be. It needs to be 5.6, sometimes 8, depending on your. So technically there's a lot of things, and that you need to take care of in a portrait as well, just like how it is in every genre of photography. But yes, we actually socially hold a very important role in portrait photography, and that is capturing the emotions and to translating them in the right sense to your community. So I guess we can, Sushilji, shall we take some questions now, and then I can end it after with some stuff.
So I request all the audience to put forth your questions now. In case you have any questions, you can write them in the chat box, or you can use the raise the hand options. I think Mark has the first question for you, Sonali. Mark,
Perfect, Mahak.
unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
Yeah, hi, great presentation. I love the photos, obviously. So I had a question about, you were talking about getting close to your subjects, not just close in distance, but close in terms of treating them like people, respecting them, knowing that they're human beings as well. Do you ever find yourself getting too close? I've found myself sometimes having too much empathy and having to back off and having to create some distance in some circumstances. Have you found yourself in those instances? And if
All
so,
the
how did
time.
you,
All the
how
time.
do you,
And I think I fall into these kind of situations more so when I don't know the language of the other person. Because I feel that when you're communicating and the way you've spoken, the opposite person is kind of understanding and analyzing where you're coming from. So they know when not to step that boundary that you are creating somehow, right? Like just as people that we do. But when I don't know the language,